Right, I think we are live. Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Aldo Socarras, and this is a random live stream that I started with Android Miami. That's the team that I founded and organized, and I'm also an organizer for Google Developer Group Miami, or GDG Miami. And this is going to be a video series where we sort of live code and walk through the Jetpack Compose for Android developers course by Google. And yeah, the whole purpose of this is basically for me to use it as an excuse to dive into Compose and learn it fully, but also just to have a place for people, either local or not, from Miami developers, any skill level to sort of dive into Compose and see what it's like and learn along, essentially. You could tune in live, you could tune in afterwards, it doesn't really matter. This is going to be at your leisure, so take it as you will. For the most part, the Google Developer Group is or groups in general, it's a program that allows developers from all over the world to sort of connect, learn, and grow. That's the slogan, essentially. And yeah, it's a huge part of the tech ecosystem. I mean, it's all over the United States, all over Europe, it's all over Asia, and it's just continuously growing. It's a great platform. So if you are interested in obviously learning more, feel free to look up GDG Miami or GDG in general, and that'll give you a little bit more of a information on that. But for now, let's go ahead and focus on Compose. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. And today's event is essentially a pilot or an overview of what we're going to be covering. So this is not the official start of the course, but I did want to go over what we're going to be tackling, essentially. If you're not familiar with Android development or Kotlin, this might be a little bit more of a learning curve, but I don't think that the information will be too over your head if you have done any sort of development in the past, or at the very least, mobile development. For the most part, composables and this sort of way of building UI systems, or UI in general, native UI, is the future, right? So Compose is becoming the standard, or has already become the standard for Android, just like Swift UI is slowly taking over, and for iOS. And this is probably going to be a pretty important thing to learn if this is your career, or if this is what you want to do in the future. So let's go ahead and dive in. This is right here. Let's see. All right. So this is the course that we're going to be tackling, and there's going to be a link, of course, in the bio, but if not, you could find it in the meetup group, the Instagram, the Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you want to look. You'll see the link there as a reference material. So it's called Jetpack Compose for Android developers. And yeah, just like it says here, it's basically how we can use Jetpack Compose to build that Android UI, right? It's supposed to be a way to build Android's UI with less code, right? So less boilerplate stuff, more intuitive. And although I have played around with it a bit, I'd be lying if I said I knew it. So for the most part, this is going to be a learning experience for all of us. I am familiar with the view system, so XMLs and stuff like that with Android, but I'm going to throw all that out the window. I'm going to start fresh, look at this with beginner eyes, and hope for the best. So there are five pathways in this course, starting with pathway number 1, which is Compose Essentials. And this is basically going to be just everything from composable functions, layout, etc. So this is not going to dive into anything deep, but let's go ahead and take a deeper look into what's involved, right? So we have an article and a couple of videos. This is, right off the bat, like it looks like we're going to be uh, having a paradigm shift in a way, right? We're changing how we think in terms of how we approach the Android UI development portion of our code. Because I see here a whole video dedicated to thinking in Compose. And of course, I'm not going to dive into it right now, but for the most part, it looks like this this might be a sort of shift from perspective of what I'm used to at the very least. It does look like we have a couple code labs. So code labs, if you're not familiar, they're great ways for us to dive into what a real world example would look like. They have this, so Google makes this in their documentation. Like they'll put code labs all over, and they have it for pretty much everything. So, Flutter, Firebase, and Android with Kotlin, like views, etc. So it looks like these are some of the Compose ones that we have. Write your first Compose app. I'm not going to dive into that yet, of course, but it looks like we are going to be, at the very least, making some basic elements, right? So, and dealing with theming as well, which looks pretty cool. So can't wait to dive into that. The Compose UI toolkit, another video we have there. Then we have another code lab. Implement a real world example, real world design. This one seems a little bit more of a tackle than the first one. I mean, when I think of a first app, I always think of like a to-do list or something of that nature. So I'm assuming that this one will be a little bit more challenging, but then again, maybe not. I see mention of modifiers, right? So we're probably going to be diving into a deeper portion of the basic components that we learned in the other code lab. And then after that, we're going to be dealing with what I'm assuming is state management. Yeah, that's what I think anyway. But composable functions, work with viewer models in the Compose app, etc. So that's going to be interesting as well. And then a couple of videos down here. Cool. So yeah, path number one looks pretty straightforward. I mean, it's what I would expect from a general basic element, documentation for a new system. So the second one would be layouts, theming, and animation. So that's kind of interesting because I usually wouldn't expect animation to be included right off the bat, but maybe Compose does that a lot easier than the current view system. So I'm hoping that that's going to be fun. I also think that it might be because this is made for Android developers, this particular course. So maybe they're not expecting you to not be familiar with a lot of the basic fundamental stuff. Let's take a look at this real quick. So layouts and modifiers. Yeah, it looks like they're going to continue off of the first path, of course, and then this is something interesting: lazy layouts. So there's going to be lists essentially, but lists that are simpler than using Recycle View, according to this. So that's going to be interesting for sure. It looks like they're going to talk about some of the stuff or the quirks that goes into that, like why items should never be 0 pixel sized, which I guess, yeah, I'm not going to assume, but that could be pretty funny because a lot of times, like developers, we think of hacky ways of doing things, and that's something that I could think of being the case for this mention right here. Yeah, cool. So material design system. So yeah, it looks like that they have a couple of videos that are going to be pretty interesting, and then of course some code labs. It looks like this one's going to be theming the app with material design, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this much emphasis on I guess theming in this sense. Like, of course, theming is important, but to include it in path number 2 out of 5, in this course. That sounds interesting. From what I've heard, it's definitely easier to support like dark and light mode. Flipping back and forth with Compose. So I'm assuming this has something to do with it. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a fun one to tackle. Styling text, another video. Yeah, some typography stuff. Let's see what else. 5 quick animations to make your app stand out. So yeah, again, I'm not sure exactly what the intent is for including animations so early, but I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit easier than the old way of doing it. So maybe that's why they mention it, but looking forward to it for sure. Drawing in Compose. Learn how to draw something custom in Compose. So this one's a little bit off, like in terms of I wouldn't expect this to be placed in this particular spot either. But it definitely, I mean, I'm excited. It sounds fun. I am just not sure why this is like I guess a fundamental sort of video for this path. But again, I'm all for it. Animating elements are cool. So there's another code lab, and then a couple optional videos at the end. It looks like these optional ones are going to be more for like a deeper dive into the layouts, modifier, etc. So yeah, if you're a front-end dev or UI dev, this is probably going to be awesome for us. And then let's take a look at path number 3. So path number 3 is architecture and state. This one sounds like a pretty, like a pretty bulky one, probably. I mean, even though it has less activities than the other ones, but it sounds like it's going to be a good one. Very complex, maybe not complex, but definitely packed. So compose phases. We have an article on architecting your Compose UI. Talking about the unidirectional data flow pattern in Compose. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna deal with some state management as well, and then of course that perspective shift again, mentioning here the component state of mind. So there's gonna be, I guess, some of they're talking about mutation, state mutation, and I guess some standards to follow. But yeah, can't wait to dive into that. Where to hoist your state. That sounds interesting. No idea what that means. Maybe some of you do, but let's find out. Advanced state and side effects. Okay, so this one's gonna dive into some of the pitfalls probably. Or maybe not. We'll see. I mean, that's what I took it as, but this is a complete assumption, of course. Navigation best practices. That definitely sounds fun. I mean, if you're familiar with Android development and like, the old way of doing things, navigation's always been a tackle, a hard tackle. And I would say it's definitely like, some of the heavier fundamental stuff that you learn as an Android developer or a developer in general. But I mentioned Android specifically because, there's a couple ways of doing the same thing, and there's a lot of disagreements in the way that we do things with navigation. Sorry. So definitely looking forward to this video and also this code lab. Yeah, and then more state management stuff. So that's path number 3. Let's take a look at pathway number 4. This one's going to be probably pretty awesome, especially because there's an emphasis on accessibility and testing, which a lot of developers kind of push to the side or leave for last minute. So this is definitely going to be great, and it seems pretty fleshed out. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. UI testing, right? So, and then a testing code lab right here. Sounds pretty cool. Some optional videos. And then we have some accessibility stuff, which is awesome. And I like this one too. It's going to be the performance gotchas. I'm not sure exactly what's in this video, but anything with gotchas definitely gets me, So looking forward to that. And then let's take a look at pathway number 5, form factors. It sounds like just different device types, which is pretty important because I think now there's a big push for these different formats, form factors, with all the different ways of developing applications. Like, you have Flutter, Kotlin, multi-platform, all that stuff, and of course, the native way of doing things for different screen sizes is very important. So, looking forward to this. Building adaptive apps. That sounds pretty cool. And yeah, again, emphasis on Material 3. So there's still some of the design aspect that's being pushed, which is great. I mean, Material 3 is definitely a big change from what I've seen anyway, compared to the other versions. And I'm looking forward to seeing how far we take this. I mean, this is, I think, a more general introductory course into Compose. I don't think this is like an advanced, developer course, but for the most part, this is still super fundamental. I think this is going to be helpful to learn. So can't wait to dive into all these different things. Oh, and they talk about Wear OS, which is great. Oh, and they have a code lab. Nice. So yeah, we're going to be talking about watches, and kind of disappointed they don't have any fridge code labs, seeing as Android is literally everywhere, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll come up with something later on, or maybe we will. But yeah, that's going to be the course. That's pretty much an overview of what we're going to be covering. Again, not diving into it now, but I did promise that I was going to record these sessions, even if it's just for myself. So this is me following through with that promise. Stay tuned. So again, follow Android Miami, GDG Miami. Doesn't matter which chapter or which channel you follow. Both are going to be posting these videos, and this is going to be always recorded. These events are remote. We do host, of course, in-person events, but for the most part, these events for the study group are going to be remote. So you can join at the comfort of your home. And that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing now. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments, message me directly, whatever it is. All my information will be on the bio, and you could find it on the page as well for the group. So have a great night, and thanks for joining.